It is Monday, March 29th, and this is the memory team weekly meeting. Not verbalized. I'm going to go ahead and change this topic because we're going to talk about all these things. So retro feedback due this week. I've already seen some comments going back. So thanks to those who've already contributed. I think the live stream is actually sometime next week. I think it's scheduled for Sunday right now. They're going to move that, obviously. All right, jumping over to the build board. I did not clean up last week's closed items, so I'll run through these real quick. Nicola, you're up first.
I have no idea what that is.
Learn together.
Okay, yes. So no, this is just a small issue. Like I found out that we have some broken specs if the load balancer is enabled. So I just pushed the MR that fixed it. In fact, everything was working fine because on local environment and on our CI, the load balancing is not configured. So the specs were like passing just fine. But in case that someone like configured for tests, those hosts, the specs will be broken. So I just fixed the spec. It's not important.
It's very important. All right. Matthias, you got the next two.
Yeah, that was so this was the issue where like whenever there was a pipeline abuse incidents, the block call in the admin UI would frequently time out because it was just particularly those users that abused pipelines that just where we had to like cancel a lot of the work they did. And unfortunately, that was then exactly when it tended to time out. So it was very annoying for the folks who like handle these incidents because they would have to go in manually and fix that. So yeah, that worked. We turned that into just a bulk update. It was basically a really expensive one-by-one update before.
Nice.
Yeah, it's just like there's some follow-up work to do because the reason we are able to bulk update that is because we're now skipping active record handlers. So there's some like post like cancellation hooks that are not firing right now. But we said it's like okay to not do that work for now, just to make sure that things are even like running. But yeah, we got really good feedback from SREs and the abuse team. They said every single block worked on those days so far that they had incidents, and we saw the timing come down. We could see it in the logs. It came down by a lot. So, so yeah, it worked well. There's some follow-up work to do. Also, the feature flag rollout issue is not done, but I'll work on that this week.
Oh, this is great. It looks like it aligns closely with the database initiative that I was describing earlier. So thank you. And then
yeah, the next one that had been open for a while, that's just like something I know. It's just like a kind of voice coding thing. I just noticed we have like this function that we use to limit result sets in active record calls, and it was kind of basically an alias for something that already existed, and it was bypassing the cop. So instead, we changed the GitLab style rules to actually allow limit clauses outside of active record models because that seems sensible. You should always be able to limit even in a service object. So yeah, it's just a cosmetic thing, I guess, but I thought would be worth doing.
Thank you. That's great. Camille, yep, this one's done. I think we need to talk about this one. Then a blog post, made the release post eventually. All right, and probably same one there.
Yeah, I mean, like we talk about this so much. Like this was just like verifying that our own guidelines actually bring down memory as we thought they would, and yeah, it worked well. So that's what the story was about.
Yeah. Thanks for pushing this through. By the way, I mean, I don't know. Was there any feedback in? I checked HackerOne. There was nothing. Anybody? Anything we received on it yet?
No, Camille put it in the CEO channel. I don't know, Camille, did you see any feedback on that?
Just thanks from the seat, nothing else.
Okay.
Well, that's good. Yeah, better than the opposite. Yeah, and apologies again. I actually like we were late with the release post, and then there is obviously a new process for merging things into the release post. And I think I followed that, but then nobody really, and including me, I didn't really announce that I had done that. And I think that caused some confusion.
Yeah, compounding problems also with the database fun that happened at the exact same time when I was supposed to hit the merge button. So we got it in.
Yep.
All good.
Mm.
All right, Nicola, you're up.
My turn. Yeah. So we enable load balancing for sidekick currently on staging. Like we created 2 separate MRs to enable it on Kubernetes and on VMs. And it will require as well to enable it later on production when we roll it out. But I'm not sure should be like split this task, because this is one more general one to enable this feature flag to different environments. But currently it's merged and it will be enabled when it like set on staging. So I'm not sure, like, should we close it and create separate one for production or what?
Do we have a change management issue for this? Because that was something we said after the, not the last retro, but the one before, we should start doing more regularly, so that, because there's this process that SREs have put in place to cooperate with them around these like bigger infrastructure rollouts. And that sounds like pretty big, right? Because that will affect a lot of sidekick jobs.
Yeah, that's a good question as well.
Yeah, I would like, I'm not a big fan of this change management process, to be honest. It's like half of the questions in that long issue template I could not even answer myself, but that's what they use. So I would really recommend, and they also asked us to please use this going forward. So I would recommend to use that. It's called change management. There's an issue template for this on the infrastructure tracker. And then you need to, they would basically ask you, put in all the like links to observability dashboards and what are your expectations, you know, and what do we do if it fails? And then and then SRE will pick this up, and then that's actually great, because then you have a point person that you can do this together with. That's what I did for, what was it? Oh yeah, the GC settings stuff. And we ended up rolling back, but but you know, at least there's like some structure then to the process, which I think it does help actually.
Cool.
So that's
Nicola, I have question. Do we have issue about logging and metrics for that?
We don't have a separate issue. There was a discussion to add different loggings for different stuff, but I think that we don't have an issue for that. I didn't create one.
Can you create a new one? I would like for her to finish logging and metrics before we roll out that on production. We are fine on doing that on staging, but before we go to the production, we would like to have this stuff be done.
Okay, just a quick one. Like, we want to have metrics like to track how many times we like queried the right location log. And what about like all code up, or like checking if the replica is, and how many times we like turn back to the primary? Do we want to log that as well? Or we can do it separately?
We will, so you have that in works, or this is something that you are not foreseeing after me asking about this logging issue? What is like, you are talking about the future, or like you are talking about the present?
The future, the future. Like, do we want all of that? Because there are some separate issues that will probably introduce some of the logging, because I noticed that Stan, who is changing like the code up, how it works, and it will introduce probably some of the logging there. So I don't want to duplicate the work. So I will ask a question there as well, but a primary metric that we want to introduce to keep track of this change.
I would focus on the objective, which is like introduce all metrics that you may need to ship it as fast as possible.
Mhm.
If you see that you will be waiting for someone else to do some of the work, and even though someone works on that, there is no clear timeline on that. So
Mhm.
my perception is like change management issue for the production gonna require us to push this metrics, and we want to see like the full behavior of that. How many times we make a decision to use or delay to use primary or not. We can, like right now, to some extent observe DB replicas and DB primary counts on the sidekick, but it's not like the clear information to use that for the production. So we don't really need a lot of metrics. I guess like probably like covering like amount of the times we hit, like the log. Actually, we have also the client location, sorry, the replica location to cover. Okay.
Yeah, and that's actually why I like that we have this change management process, even though it could be more lightweight, I guess, but it kind of forces you to think about when can I actually call this successful, right? Or how do I decide that it should move from staging to Canary, or when it should move from Canary to production and so forth. So it kind of helps as well. Like
yeah, but it's funny, like you don't have sidekick on Canary, so it's not
right. Okay, that was not a good
the
example,
same.
but like
And also this change will not like this environment variable will still not enable workers to use the sidekick. We have the separate roller process for the feature flag, so it makes it even more complex.
Yeah, definitely. But it's especially useful. It's especially useful if you cannot use a feature flag, because for feature flags we have a pretty lightweight rollout template and process, right? But this stuff, like where you actually need to work together with an SRE,
So,
because yeah, go ahead.
Matthias, like our feature flag rollout template got a little more verbose. Like a few minutes ago, I merged the change.
Fair enough. Fair enough. But the nice thing is you can do it yourself, is what I mean. But like if I want to change, let's say I want like when we did the GC thing, I think no, actually that was for the madvise setting. We actually enabled it first on a particular cluster of the a sub portion of the entire API fleet, I think it was, or the WebSockets fleet. This is something you can't do that yourself. You need to work with an SRE, because that goes through the pipeline that manages these overrides for our Helm charts that we apply to SaaS. So that's where the stuff really helps. I find that helps.
Cool.
All right, so you're going to create some issues for.
Yeah, I will create, and
right.
Camilla will probably ping you to take a look.
Yeah, I have an update for this query. It turned out to be more complex than it looked like. It looked like a lot of low-hanging fruits, but they are not. So we paired with Adam last week and today with Fabian, and we shipped one small index, but unfortunately it provides rather marginal improvement. So the next step is probably to rewrite the logic completely or introduce CTE for particular type of projects, but we decided to probably close this issue and wait until it pop-ups again, to not like invest too much into it.
Yep,
so yeah.
Thank you. All right, Matthias.
Yeah, that's like one of the mega issues in this epic. They were like, this endpoint is just, there's like no end of problems with that. And like we've made steady progress, I think, and that wasn't just all me. I think there are like 5 MRs attached already to that issue. I just opened another one today. Yeah, like this endpoint was like ripe with endpoint. I actually begin to think maybe it's getting a little convoluted, because maybe we should have broken out sub issues or something, but that's why it's been open for like over a month. But it's still ongoing. Like there's still more we can do. I think we just need to find a good cutoff point with this one. Like, you know, kind of what is good enough, because it just is very complicated. It's like this massive tree of things that we load. And then EE behaves a bit differently from CE based on like the kind of licenses you have and whatnot. And is quite complicated. But yeah, I'm still making some progress there, but I think at some point maybe the return on investment isn't that great anymore. So maybe I'll try to kind of get to a stopping point this week, I think.
Okay.
There's also like one really expensive query, like with these build artifacts. Like I talked to Camille about this already. I actually think at this point, because in parallel there's some traction now behind an issue where we actually suggested to let's just not do that anymore and make that completely lazily from a user perspective, so that we don't even have to worry about this, because it currently preloads sometimes thousands of build artifacts or the metadata for those, because it needs to render a download button because you might click this, right? So there was some back and forth, like we don't really know how often that is actually clicked. But PMs seem to be on board with just saying, let's just make that lazy, so that there's maybe an additional click necessary, but then it's just another request to fetch the artifacts only for this one pipeline you clicked on, which I think makes so much sense. And if we do this, then we don't need to, then this query will just not run as part of the tab. I think that's the best solution, honestly.
That's great. Yeah, there were some other options where they discussed moving to lazy loading in some of those query optimization research issues that were covered. So,
and the nice thing is this will be great from a memory perspective, not just database pressure, because we found that I think it was 70% or so of the JSON render was just the build metadata. So this will shrink memory usage like massively for .com on the big, not all pipelines obviously, but like the GitLab or GitLab will be much faster.
good.
I think my perception on that is focus on lazy load. So I'm not like looking at Matthias like what you brought like on Friday. I just don't see us able to do it right.
Yeah, I agree, and it's like it takes a very long time to fight. I tried out so many things as well, and it feels also like a duplication of efforts now that we're already working on the better solution anyway. So I think I'll just park that. I focus on the remaining endless ones.
All right, Camille, you're up.
Okay, I'm assigned to this. Okay, so I wrote the data. So I know gonna maybe ask Fabian to help me on that and reassign to Fabian to look at this data and figure out how we could generate issues for different endpoints to prioritize them. I guess can you open?
Yeah.
Yes, it's basically memory limits defining and figuring out what aspects of the GitLab, endpoints, maybe requests we want to solve as for the memory usage. Can you scroll down?
Can you scroll to the bottom?
We actually discussed about that roughly. I think because at least one of the endpoints was at least one of the endpoints I saw as something to low-hanging fruit to solve.
Yeah. So my question is, I created an epic already. If you click on 5622 for this. And I didn't do very much, right? But I consolidated all of the comments in there. And I also created sort of the first sample issue right here for API version internal allowed. I think that was one of the candidates. My suggestion on how to proceed here would be either to find another session and go through the top 5 or top 10 issues that we have, right, that we want to address, open sub issues, and then try to fix them, as swiftly as we can. And I think we can probably close the log data to graph memory usage one, because all of the information is extracted, and I think the implementation is also done.
Yes, I agree. I think we can close this issue because we discussed that and we actually promoted that to be epic.
Yeah. Cool. And it's also located in that epic, right? So
Okay, so maybe next office hours when you all are around, can spend some time on that and break out some issues.
Yeah, sure.
I'm kind of liking like this approach for the N+1 that we did in the past, like figure out a way to automatically generate offenses on the endpoints that go like beyond. And once we go through like this initial fixing, we just like fan out these memory heavy endpoints. I mean, especially it can be useful given that there is like a bunch of the focus on the performance right now. So it may be also like the right time to push that.
Yeah, I think what would be, I think the sort of maybe medium term, if we can create, I mean, there was a discussion recently with sort of infra dev issues, right? If we have automation at some point where we can say, hey, this is a query that, or an endpoint that uses more memory than we want, right? And it's new, then you generate, maybe even auto-generate an issue, right? You tag it appropriately, and then you figure out what group it owns, and it becomes part of that triage issue, right? As a, this is a thing that needs attention, because I think that is probably the way people will, you know, I mean, we need to help them figure this out, but I think it needs to be pushed onto the feature teams so that they can fix it, right? But and I think we shouldn't have to do that manually, ideally.
Okay. See you next one.
I have to drop. I have another meeting, so please continue without me.
Nicola. Nicola.
Yeah, the next one is mine. Like this is the follow-up item from like introducing the read-only database replica for Sidekick. There are some open discussions like to provide the better retry mechanism and to introduce some caching. So, but before like I continue my work on this, I will probably first address those metrics that Camille mentioned. So I will probably pause this until I finish the metrics first.
Okay. All right, we don't need to cover those. That's it. That's the board. I don't know if there's anything on here. Nope, nothing. All right, is there anything? Sorry, go ahead.
I just want to mention that like allow Sidekick jobs to use read-only database replica is currently in the open column, but actually it's like currently workflow is set to feature flagged. So I guess it should be closed soon. Currently we're verifying it on the staging, but it's still not gonna be deployed to the production. So it's somewhere in between. But it's currently, it shouldn't be in the backlog.
I just wanted myself, because I'm also working on a rollout issue, and someone else moved it into workflow verification, which I had never used before. I think that's actually the label we use for something that is done and it's like being verified in production, I guess. But it's not closed yet because you're not 100% sure yet that it's working. I'm not sure if we have this column, but like that's maybe where they all are now.
We can add it.
Yeah, I mean, is this something that is added like automatically somehow by just by virtue of it going through the pipeline stages? No, okay.
I don't believe so. I think you have to add it manually. I think we use it sort of sparingly in Geo for exactly what you just said. It's like things that, you know, are probably fine, but need to be somehow verified on the product.
I just wanted to ask about this specific item because we have a rollout issue and we will have also the separate issue for like that environment variable. And I know that there was an open discussion when like we have the separate rollout issue. Do we close the original one? How we track the progress? Like is everything stays open until the rollout issue is closed or?
Yeah, this one, there's a lot there. This one almost feels like an epic, right? And all of those other issues you just mentioned would be separate issues for it.
Yeah, yeah.
And shaking his head.
Yeah.
It's a
I
little
would
hard to
agree.
keep track on it because yeah, it has a lot of related stuff. So I just wonder, like, should we do something about it or not?
Yeah, and like I said, this feels like just a sub epic of this, with all of the other issues you were talking about would be grouped in, because there's no, the definitive end state of this one is when you get everything else done, right?
Yes.
No, I think it sounds like maybe converting it into an epic with sub issues is the right thing to do.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's like this is also GitLab has support for modeling these sort of issue networks, right? Which is actually able to display more complex relationships between things. But I personally find that it is a lot easier to just provide a hierarchical bucket organization where you just like, let's put stuff in here, you know, this is the epic, this is the outcome, work it off, close it, right? Because the extra effort in defining all of those relationships gets lost in people needing to figure out how all of that really works.
Okay.
My 2 cents.
So, yeah. All right. So Nicola, you'll promote and then link the other issues to this.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
I'll do that.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
Yeah. That's it for the agenda. Any other topics folks want to cover today? No. All right.
I just wanted to briefly ask Craig, the list you were defining previous week, is it being updated regularly, or is it already set for now and won't be updated? And everybody needs to kind of find new issues on their own.
You're talking about this one?
Yes.
I think we've reached critical mass on this one. If we find any more issues, it's not going to be like the graph that you saw before, where we throw in 100 a day. So the answer is yes and no. There will be new issues added, but it'll be more like 1 or 2 at a time. So yeah, if you find yourself with work that you need to do, like if you don't have anything on the board or you can't contribute to what Nicola is working on, then yeah, you can jump over here and start grabbing from these. And if you see, especially if you see a manager assigned to any of these, feel free to just take it from them, because they're probably still trying to find an individual to work on it, and just let them know, like, hey, I have some bandwidth. I can pick this up from you.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks for picking up the one you already have. It's helpful. All right. If there's nothing else, happy Monday, everybody.
Happy Monday. See
See
ya.
y'all online.
See you. Bye-bye.